Tuesday on that. Those of you who tune in on YouTube, which needs to grow as an audience on that, welcome aboard as Jesse's firing up the old computer and getting ready to do Facebook Live. We're going to have to figure out how you can simultaneously do all this stuff in one shot. That way you can go, we can just send it out on every platform all across the World Wide Web, net, social media, or whatever screwball stuff we're calling it, and then we'll dominate the airways. How's that for a plan? Adjusting the camera of that as we're waiting to go up. Pretty soon the music's going to start. There's that funky slide guitar music that comes on every day live at 5 on IA Newswire on YouTube and Facebook Live on that. Somewhat of a calmer Taco Tuesday today, yesterday. I mean, and it seems like that. Well, you get all the backup from the news that you didn't cover on the weekend, and Mondays are always busy, usually. Chaotic because you're trying to catch up on everything. You're trying to cram all these stories in. And believe it or not, and Jesse could probably attest to this, sometimes you only get to like 10% of what you have on there because you got all this stuff going to, and you think, well, yeah, I'm going to get this, and you start getting into things and that. We'll have Steph will join us here in a little bit, and we'll do talk about the schools and some of the things, because that's still a hot topic, and some more stuff happened at Orange County, and we'll cover that. Businesses are hot all over the, not only all over the California, but in the Inland Empire over Gavin Newsom's newest lockdown deal that's coming on. But producer Jesse just showed me this video before we started the show, and I imagine I hope it shocks and gets you a lot of you to think. It doesn't really shock me because I've seen the strains of this coming a lot, and you've seen it. You've seen it with the actions that we've had. We've been letting this stuff go, letting people take more latitude, letting people break the law with impunity or no punishment. Up to Gavin Newsom's going to kick 8,000 out of our prison system now as a COVID-19 excuse on that. You think they have a little incentive to do this and keep it going? They've wanted to defund the prisons because they can raise their salaries up if there's less prisoners in there eating up the largesse of the $200+ billion state of California budget. Well, we can cut up some more of that gold for ourselves and not be giving them prisoners. All this stuff boils down to dollars and cents on this stuff. But this is the latest deal, and at first it gave me a chuckle, but when you get to the end of the clip, there's really a serious tone behind this. So this is posted by Destruction of America. This is a cat named Grandmaster J. And a lot of you that don't know, Grandmaster was, the Grand Wizard. I guess it's kind of that of the KKK. Maybe it's an adaptation of this. But this is a short clip, about 45 seconds. I'll let you listen to Grandmaster J of NFAC, which is Not Effing Around Coalition, that which they don't state in there. So I thought I'd let you. So as you're doing with me, when I heard, I'm thinking, what is it? I never heard of the NFAC. And then when Jesse told me that, I said, well, I'll have to edit that a little bit. But here's Grandmaster J of the NFAC. Let it rip, Jesse.
descendant of slavery, a political prisoner here in the United States that was affected by the Portuguese slave trade. And then after that, the United States has a choice. Either A, carve us a piece of land out here, we'll take Texas and let us do our own thing, or don't stop us when we exit this out of here and go somewhere where they will give us our own land to build our own nation.
What is your name and what is the...
I'm the official Grandmaster Jay. I created the NFAC.
All right, and how long have the organization been in existence?
We don't give that information out. Just how we'll tell you this, we're all ex-military, we're all very disciplined, we're all expert shooters. We don't want to talk no more, we don't want to negotiate, we don't want to sing songs, we don't bring signs to a gunfight. We're an eye for an eye organization. So
there you go, Eye for an Eye organization. They want to Africanize Texas, or they want that, or some sort of silliness. I've just been aware we'll have to dig deeper into the realm of what's going on this whole thing. But this guy, if you've heard, but go back and listen to some of the Grand Wizards or some of the KKK stuff and see if this guy doesn't sound exactly like the leadership and the stuff of the KKK. We're going into, if they don't give us Texas, we are ex-military, we are ex-shooters. Wait a minute. I've never heard the military refer to their expert marksmen as shooters. They are marksmen of that, experts in the field of that, to can pick off guys at 500 yards on and on practically any conditions and stuff. Some of your top flight marksmen's of that, but shooters, really? And we, by any means that we have to. I want to emphasize this point, and there was another key. You got to see how they slipped this stuff in. One key, and if a lot of things we've been saying on this show and a lot of other shows of, hey, why is not the governors or the city officials or the police department, sheriff's departments stopping these riots right when they're doing the protests in the middle of the streets and the whole thing? Because when you embolden them, or there's no punishment for committing a crime, violating other people's rights, taking their property, or permitting access to their property, then they're going to keep doing it. Or you're going to get escalation. This is the next step. We are going to take over. But have that clip back up there again, Jesse, on the deal. I want to run that first part again right off the beginning, because if this part doesn't concern you, and now after hearing this, and all the events leading up to this, the rioting and the looting and the lawlessness, and Gavin Newsom kicking out 8,000 more prisoners on an already horrendous crime spree that's going in. What did they kicked out? About 10,000 or 20,000 on early leave before this, and crime's been going crazy. But there's another key. If that doesn't get your attention, look at this little vignette that's buried in here. Let her rip, Jesse.
Descendant of slavery, a political prisoner here in the United States that was affected by the Portuguese slave trade. And then after that.
So, you just heard the Portuguese slave trade. I thought it was only the evil white man that had slaves. It's only the evil white man that can be a racist. It's only the evil white man that can be a suppressor. So where did we come up with the Portuguese slave trade? Look at the information we have brought to you on this show. There is no society in the recorded history up until what of that. There is no race, shade of brown your skin tone is, color of your eyes, whether you trim your toenails or not, or you have a bald head or hair down to your rear end, or whatever, or what kind of parts are sitting in the middle of your legs. There has been slavery and racism and that throughout our history. It has been there before. There is even some of it here today, and it will continue to be. There's always going to be a small percentage of people that will have thoughts of anything. And you're never going to stomp out 100% of any stupid, evil, idiot idea, thought, action, or anywhere. There are people. That's why we have to have police and law enforcement and military and the whole 9 yards for protection, because there's some screwy people out there. Some of them are actually leaders of countries like Rocket Man or Xing or whatever's in China, where Trump announced today that he signed an executive order going to put pressure on China because of their mistreatment of the people of Hong Kong on there, who used to be a free people, and now China's putting the kibosh on them. But when you go back to this stuff, this is what is dangerous about this whole thing. This guy, because now it's empowering ones like Grandmaster Jay. And if, is he blowing smoke? Or does he really have ex-military? Is he really organizing or stuff? You didn't think CHOP or Chaz or the rioting or eliminating police departments would happen, did you? Well, that certainly is up on the game on that. Here's another thing, just give that a little bit of thought. We all had yesterday's bombshell announcements from Gavin Newsom. We're closing this, shutting this down. As we said, there's nothing worse for business to be on a yo-yo cycle. There's been plenty of businesses that were gearing up, especially for 4th of July, especially the restaurant, food industry, was gearing up, ordering stuff, getting ready, firing back up, which takes a tremendous amount of expense after you've been shut down for 2 months, trying to get supplies, trying to get everybody back to work, doing that, gearing up, and then he pulled the rug out from under them then and shut down basically 4th of July weekend so nobody could go out, or putting the scare tactics in. And then yesterday continued locking down more businesses, and I'm sure there's going to be some to come by the end of the week or first of next week. But this is in the press enterprise by Bo Yarborough. Ashley Meyer, site manager at Hangar 18 Indoor Climbing Gym in Upland, said the business had been doing well with regular cleaning and mask requirements. We'd been doing a pretty good job. But now all of our staff had to go on unemployment. We will be doing that tomorrow. Everything is up in the air for our staff and our members. The gym is putting memberships on hold for now. People were getting back to work for 2 or 3 weeks. Now they're back on the unemployment. Look for the unemployment that was already staggering 20% or whatever on that. Further, it's a lot of bummed out people, she said. On top of that, Murrieta attorney Robert Tyler had sent a letter signed by 1,200 members of the clergy and the Governor of May demanding churches be allowed to meet indoors, called the new orders a significant setback to the desperately needed social services that are provided by religious organizations. The freedom of worship is paramount to our importance, and we will support churches who provide services as their faith sincerely dictates, as long as they do not provide services recklessly. Well, again, we go back to the question of, if masks work, suddenly what miracle happened, masks work, everything's cool, no problem, ollie ollie oxen, all that stuff we said before, just ignore that. Masks work, why are the close downs? When you can answer me that, maybe you have some credence to what you're doing, Gavin Newsom. If not, you are doing this to destroy the economy and the people's lives of the state of California, and for your own and your cronies' personal gain. It's a danger of one-party rule, and we've got it to the max in California and New York. You want to keep it up with this stuff, after the fact is too late. If this stuff, Grandmaster Jay, if Gavin Newsom, if Chaz Chop, and the mortician and the witch lady down in L.A. and Yoga Pants Garcetti and his twin governor brother Andrew Cuomo in New York haven't got your attention, I don't know what will. So we're going to talk a little bit about the Orange County situation, so be ready for the video on that. Orange County, most people don't know, a lot of parents are probably familiar with their local school board of that, but you don't know in each county there's a county board of education. So Orange County Board of Education met last night, and a group of parents gathered outside of that, and was that because Orange County Board of Education is saying we're recommending starting classes, kids no mask, ollie ollie oxen, let's get ready to go. So here it is. This is a CBS2 video on that at the school board, or at the Orange County School Board meeting. Let her go.
Teachers clashed outside the Orange County Board of Education meeting tonight.
According to the CDC, the risk of dying for anybody under the age of 19 is 0.0%.
The board voted 4-1 to recommend that 28 OC school districts reopen
Yes.
without social distancing or mask requirements. The meeting led to passionate debate.
Do not risk kids. Do not risk
This
kids.
board
Do
did
not
what they
risk
were called to
kids.
do.
To open up the schools would just, be opening up death traps for tons of kids.
Keep our kids safe.
Here we've been planning in detail on how we're going to bring the students back safely, and they're just like, oh, throw caution to the wind. Just let's risk all the children's lives. I can't
That's a
do that.
teacher.
The board does not have the power to make policy for any school or district. The vote is a suggestion, not an order.
I have not talked to any teachers who are against being in the building with students. In fact, that's what we would prefer. But the reality is we have to do this in a safe manner.
Other parents told the board keeping schools closed is doing more harm than good.
Children are very, very low risk for COVID-19. So it just doesn't make sense scientifically to keep them home. And it's important that our kids go back to school so they can learn.
I think we're not
Dr.
thinking about
Jeff
creative
Barkey.
solutions right now. What about putting the plexiglass up at like they do at the grocery store? Have the teachers stand behind the plexiglass and teach at the whiteboard.
In spite of how the board voted tonight, school districts like Santa Ana Unified say they already know that they have two choices to make. One, open back in the fall with online-only classes, or they're going to do a mixture of online and in-person classes with social distancing and mask requirements. In Costa Mesa, Stacy Butler, KCAL 9 News.
So there you go. The Orange County Board of Education said, there you go. Here's what one of the things that was said. Last month, the Board of Education held a meeting with experts who concluded that a white paper that requiring students to wear masks is not only difficult, but may even be more harmful over time. It was also stated that social distancing of children and re-education of classroom size and census may be considered, but not vital to the implement of school-age children, and advised that parents are in the best possible determination of education environment that best suits them. A school district is unable and unwilling to reopen schools in a manner that resumes typical classroom environment and schools atmosphere, and parents should be allowed to send their children to a district or charter school that will be preferred much education. And that's what a lot of parents are doing. If the schools don't open up, they're jerking their kids, putting them in charter schools or that so they get a proper education. At least the Orange County Board of Education has their head screwed on right. We're not. But we're going to bring on Stephanie on that, and we're going to have a discussion more about the schools and will they or will they not reopen in the fall semester of 2020. So we're going to get into a couple of subjects here today. One, Charles Barkley was on CNBC Power Lunch on that. They were talking about sports, and the NBA is coming up with a deal. They're going to start their season here pretty soon down in Orlando. They got all the teams quarantined, yada, yada, yada. We deal with two issues. The first issue is politics and sports. So this is Charles Barkley on politics and sports on CNBC. Let's go.
The backs of the jerseys. Is there too much politics in sports?
Well, I think what's happening now, we turn it into a circus. We're going to spend all our time, instead of talking about racial equality and racial justice and economic justice, we spend all our time worried about who's kneeling and who's not kneeling, what things are being said on buses, what's being said on jerseys. I think we're missing the point. We need police reform, we need prison reform, and we need those are number 1 and 2 things we need to focus on. We need the cops, we need the good cops out there policing the bad cops. Like I say, we need police reform and prison reform. But the media, we all got a job to do, and they're going to spend all their time on what's on somebody's jersey and what's on the buses and who's kneeling and who's not kneeling, and that's going to defeat the purpose. My concern is just turning this thing into a circuit instead of trying to do some good stuff.
At the same time, Charles.
There you go. There's Charles Barkley on that. Yeah, we're turning this into a circus. We're going to part to the deal. We're not dealing with that. The media is blowing this out of proportion. Allowing the NBA to put whatever, they're going to allow them to put political statements on their jerseys. At least LeBron James and Anthony Davis of the Lakers said, we're not doing it. They said, everybody can do what they want, but we're not doing it. We're going to put our names and our numbers on there like it's always been, and we're going to play the game. And that's the way it should be.
Right.
If we're good, but as we said, sports is where we get away from stuff.
Exactly.
We're not
That's
talking.
where it's entertaining.
Yes.
And it's fun, joyful.
Hey, right.
We come together.
If we're going to turn that, it's just like the deal. The Washington Redskins are finally relenting and eliminating the name over political pressure of that. This is why it's bad. Of that, because the government-owned stadium of this and putting the pressure on in Washington, D.C., if you want to move into the new stadium, you're not going to be allowed to, we're not going to allow you to move in, yada, yada, yada. Dan Snyder, and this is why you never say that word never, he said, well, I'd never change the name. Well, now they've announced they're changing the name over all the pressure that's going on across the board. And that's what's really sad in this whole deal. This is the next one on there talking about the jerseys on that. Here we go with on a CNBC with Charles Barkley.
Things are so divisive right now that maybe sports should be the one sort of island where you can go and people can feel united because there isn't any controversy.
Well, actually, I think your question is a great question. And I really don't know the answer to that because obviously we are in a divided country. And sports used to be a place where fans could go and get away from reality. And now it's such a mixture. I think it's going to be fascinating watching what happens with the fans. And obviously the fans are at such a disadvantage because they're going through the pandemic and they don't want to see a bunch of rich people talking about stuff all the time. I think like I say, I don't think there's a right or wrong answer, but these people all have lost their jobs. They're struggling financially. They're not going to get their jobs back. And the last thing they want to do is turn on the television and hear arguments about stuff all the time. I mean, it's
there you go. That's what I've been talking about. The Black National Anthem. Putting political statements on the jerseys and everything else. If we go down this path, we're gonna. That's the last. What do they want to do? They haven't ruined everything except sports. Now we want to throw sports down the trash can.
See, I can see, everybody hates change, and we talk about that often. I personally don't do well with change. I panic. Why is everyone trying to change everything? During October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, so the guys will be on the football team. They'll be wearing pink tennis shoes or have the pink, the symbol for breast cancer, or during other awareness months. That I can see maybe alternating or putting a patch on.
Yes, that's appropriate.
Represent
that's
awareness of, exactly. You're supporting those that are hurting from that. But everything else,
political statements on they got 29 of them on there.
Because then they're going to have, how many fights are going to break out on the stands?
That's what I say. We're going to,
or
do we want a Fox News or CNBC or, whatever it is, CNN or MSNBC political debate going on in our sports deals on it. Absolutely critical. But we wanted to switch gears into probably an even more important topic. Said at the beginning of this, I said at the beginning of this, schools as you knew them were going to be over. I said they were already putting in this. LAUSD today, Austin Buettner, the superintendent, said no schools in the fall system of that, no in classes, anything. Here's on CBS 2 LA with the short clip on Austin Butner.
In LA Unified School are no longer in limbo. They will not be back on campus next month when school resumes. And that was the big announcement today from Superintendent Austin Butner. KCAL9's Christine Lazar shows us what that means for students and their families.
With just 5 weeks to go until the new school year, LAUSD has made the decision to start the year all remote.
While the new school year will begin in August, it will not start with students at school facilities. The health and safety of all in the school community is not something we can compromise.
Okay, let's go with that. Let's go with the mask theory on that. We can figure out how to keep, you're going to hear this one. We can figure out how to keep stores open. We can figure out how to, certain stores, we can figure out how to do that.
Casinos are staying open.
But kids who are practically immune to this, not only do they not get it, but for the most part of the vast 98.7%, they don't even spread it.
Right.
So the teachers are that we can't figure if the mask and the social distancing. Okay, put up the little fiberglass or the little plexiglass deal like you see at your cashiers in front of the teacher's desk. Or if you want to make teachers into monks or whatever, just make them sit behind the desk and never do that. Fine and dandy, but here's what's going on. Like they said, you want to open up the economy. We got to get that back. We got to get our schools, our kids, and it's becoming more. You're hearing more and more. This is a disaster. The one hopefully good thing I think is going to come out of this is more parents now are looking at doing charter schools, sending their kids to private school, or doing something because they're seeing the apoplectic, the frozenness, the fear that our public school system is putting in. Not only is it LAUSD, San Diego's announced they are not opening up in the fall semester, San Bernardino County, Jurupa Valley, and that's just around here. And those are some darn big school districts. Right. Look for it. LA County, and you know who's been hollering the wars? Teachers unions. They don't want to go back to the class.
I mean, MBUSD hasn't announced yet, so we're waiting on the word on that. I'm sure they're going to probably follow suit. I think they need to leave it up to parents because some parents don't want to send their kids back. Some are fine doing homeschooling, and that's great. You want to be a homeschool teacher? You want to teach your kid? Bravo to you. Hats off. You're amazing. However, I am not a teacher. I can't teach my kids correctly the way they need to be taught. I can't. I mean, I can teach them respect and other things in different areas. I'm not a freaking teacher, though. They're not going to get that great education that, and I know you bash the public schools, but they get a really good education, my kids do, and I can't even keep up with that. So, I can't. There's no way I'm going to be able to homeschool my kids. And they need that interaction with their classmates. They need that friend time. They need their own time to get out and go play and do things. I really think they need to leave it up to the parents.
I think so, too. And it isn't bashing, it's the stats. I went through them, just the quick stats. The top 18 counties in California. Riverside County.
I know, but a lot of people bash.
We're 15.
We're
15.
I'm not talking about just our district, just in general. People always knock public schools.
Because of the
charter schools and private schools aren't getting funded. So those aren't even going to be around. Those are all closing down.
No, they're actually, parents are starting to gravitate to them.
Private schools, no, they're not being funded.
Of that, no, the parents now are looking at private schools and or charter schools.
They're not working.
Well, you get your charter school, you get your $8,500 on that. But of the top 15 or top 18 counties, Riverside County is 15, and that's of California, who's in like 42nd out of the 50 states. So, and then you get to that. Then MVUSD on a combined math and English test scores are number 20th out of the 23 school districts in there. So they're at the bottom of the bottom of the bottom.
All right, you're getting off topic.
But that's why people are looking more to the charter schools, looking to private schools, because now, as bad as they were before, now you can't even get your kid in there. It's like they're locked out. Here's Ron DeSantis in Florida, where this thing is panicking. This is what he said, I think it's Friday, this on CNN. We're going to hit this.
Something every parent is thinking about, schools. And this week, Florida ordered schools to reopen this fall. The governor said this.
If you can do Home Depot, if you can do Walmart, if you can do these things, we absolutely can do the schools. I want our kids to be able to minimize this education gap that I think is developed.
It shouldn't be a political issue. It should be based on the facts. And if we see that this is very low risk, and we see, I think overwhelmingly in every study, that the school kids are not vectors of transmission.
There you go. He said it. School kids are not vectors of transmission. Our kids are suffering because they're not getting the education that they should be. And there is no if we can keep Walmart and open and stuff like that, Home Depot, why can't kids go back to school?
Exactly. And you know what? Unfortunately, in the times that we're in right now with moms, dads, grandparents, the guardians, they're not working. They don't have the money and the funds to stay home, feed their children, all that. So it's like, it's really unfortunate because we, at our school district, we offer a lot for the homeless families and all that. And all the students that might be going without food and just all of that, it's heartbreaking. They need to factor that in too, because a lot of these kids, they go to school and that's the only meals they're getting for that day. Then what?
And that's what we should be. That's what we should be investigating. I've been saying it many. You talk about what I do. Answer me this question. Is ask it. That's why I go up there and talk about economics and opportunity. We should not have 80% of our kids being on subsidized lunches and everything in our school districts. That is, if that is not an alarm bell, that's something else. There's something definitely wrong. That's why you should be cooperating. And what they're doing now is just digging us deeper. They're making us more dependent on it. We're going to be 100% dependent on that. And then you want to think you're in a pickle now? Wait till you're 100% dependent on the government.
Right.
Go look at what's happening in Venezuela right now. You're going to see like that. You're going to be gathering gnats out of the air trying to eat them.
Is that really happening?
Yes.
It's heartbreaking.
I mean, you want to keep destroying everything, then keep letting it go. Keep going on the way you're going.
I mean, how many people are going broke, going bankrupt? I mean, and then you have Christmas coming up. I mean, it's a couple months away, but all these kids that are going to be missing out on stuff at school.
I think the latest stat is 35% of the people are either missed mortgage payments or are behind on their rent right now.
Right.
That is catastrophic. That cannot.
And even the parents' mental state. I mean, a lot of people, suicide rates have gone up.
How do you get the economy open if majority of the parents, especially around here, built their lives around, the kids are going to go to school, mom and dad are going to work. And this is all, how did they, even if, so they get back to go to work, now they can't send a kid to school. Who's going to sit and watch the kids all day while they're doing all this remote learning?
Yep.
Anybody figure this out?
And you need to be a teacher now. It's exhausting. I mean, they do a great job bringing the material in and all that, but children react differently to parents versus a teacher. A teacher is going to tell my kid to do that, and he's going to do it. I tell a kid to do that. I'm getting back and forth for 20 minutes before little Timmy decides to finally do the freaking math question I asked him to do. It doesn't work out well. And then I have 4 different grade levels. Am I going to get paid for being a teacher?
Nope.
Because I should. Because now I'm a teacher.
Nope, but we're getting charged $20 grand, $80 grand a pop just for your 4 kids. And you think they're getting $80 grand? You think at $80 grand you could find a better education system for your kids? Because that's what's costing you
30 seconds
and everybody else per kid in the state of California right now.
I mean, I really am happy with what my kids are learning and doing, but they have the support at home. They have everything. They have the support on the.
Quick question: if we could do a better education at $7,500, would you pay $20,000 or $7,500?
What?
If you could get a better education at $7,500 or a worse education at $20,000,
and download your free phone app today. IE Newswire Daily is on the air.
The following is a paid program. Views and claims expressed are those of the program producer and are not endorsed by this station. Opinions expressed are not necessarily those of radio station KMET, its management, employees, or affiliates.
There's that funky slide guitar music. Comes on every 5:30, Monday through Friday on the Mighty Met KMAT 1490, broadcasting all over Southern California and joining our vast array audience that has been tuning in as when we start at live at 5 on IE Newswire on both Facebook and YouTube on that. And if those of you tuning in, I'd encourage you to go back and look in the archives on, because we covered the Grandmaster, and I'm just going to put this, as I'm going to choke to death here, the Grandmaster J thing. If you are concerned about any of this stuff, if the Grandmaster J little video vignette clip we played does not concern you, then nothing else will. I don't know. Gavin Newsom's kicking out 8,000 more on the lockdown that's coming out of that. Businesses all over Southern California, and the Inland Empire are hurting. They were just getting their employees back. Now, as the Bo Yarborough Press Enterprise article states, now they're laying them back off, not going to the, they're in turmoil. And as we've said, the worst thing you can do is go on a yo-yo cycle. Open businesses up, close them back down. Gavin Newsom says he's a small business person. No way. I mean, he is in name only. Because if he actually ran a small business, he would know that. The expense it takes to fire up, and especially after you've been off of doing your own for 2 or 3 months, and then you got to fire back up, the expense of that, and then to have a yo-yo like Gavin Newsom pull the rug out from under you, on top of 8,000 more prisoners being pitched out on that. After what, they've released 10,000, 20,000 or so more on that, and crime's going rampant all over the place on that. But we have, and starting this new week on there, and it's very important, I think, and very apropos that we get her on at the first of the week with the new Gavin Newsom announcement of lockdown and closing businesses, and maybe pounding the final nail in once was the Golden State of California. We're going to be bringing on that famed physician that you've heard many times on this show. You've heard her credentials many times before, and most importantly, she's been spot on of practice. I haven't seen anything I've heard yet since she's been on our show that has not come to pass, or she's been that, or anybody's really bring any evidence to dispute what she said. So, Dr. Kelly Victory, welcome back to iNewsWire Daily with Roy.
Hey, Roy, great to be back. You've set the bar kind of high here.
On that, I want to start with this, and we brought it out on yesterday's show when all this stuff broke. And I want to get your thoughts on this. Okay, we heard at the beginning of the coronavirus thing, masks aren't effective, don't wear them, yada, yada, yada. Then, 2-3 weeks ago, all of a sudden, somebody waved a magic wand, and masks are the best thing since sliced bread to prevent the spread of coronavirus. So this is my question. If masks all of a sudden, and let's just stipulate they are, let's not get into that argument, let's just say masks are the best thing you can do, then why not why not open up everything in the economy, sporting events, gyms, bars, everything else, just require wearing a mask if they're so effective? What do you say, Kelly?
No, I agree, and I've made the same argument, Roy. First of all, I do not buy into the idea that masks are necessary or effective for this particular virus. So let's put that stipulation out there. But if you believe, as apparently some of our public health leaders do, whether that's Dr. Fauci or people in political positions like Gavin Newsom, if you believe that they are, in fact, effective, then you are precisely right. Why can't we then open things up? If you believe that a mask is so effective that it is necessary to mandate them across the state, then why can't people sit across the table from their nail technician or their hair person or whatever, go to the movie theater wearing a mask? So I think it's these sorts of inconsistencies that have really led many, many Americans, including I'm sure a lot of your listeners, to be extraordinarily frustrated because it doesn't make sense. What they're saying one thing, but then it doesn't make sense because if masks worked, everything should be able to be opened as long as we wear masks.
I want to write, Joshua writes, and Kelly Victory is hands down the best of giving the best advice. Thank you for all your useful information. Stephen has an interesting question. He says, can Dr. Kelly just lay out what we should be doing in regards to COVID?
Well, boy, that's a big, truly, and I will state again. I mean, that's a big ask, but I will say the virus is real. The virus is very real. I have never claimed it's a hoax, nor would I. It's a very real virus. The great news about COVID-19 is we know who the truly at-risk population is. And that population is that older group. We say over 65, but it's really even more than that, older than that. And people who have significant underlying health conditions like diabetes and heart disease and obesity, lung disease, those sorts of things. So in my estimation, what we should have been doing from the start, when you are fortunate enough to know the target population, you then are able to rally around those people and protect them. What we've done that I believe is an incredible misstep and a huge disservice, a tragic disservice to so many, hundreds of millions of Americans, is that we have acted as if everyone is at equal risk or significant risk, and we have shut down the economy, kept all of these healthy young people home, kept children home from school, when we know that those people don't fall into the risk category at all. So what should we be doing? What we should be doing is, if you are one of those people who falls into a risk category, or your loved ones are, rally around them to protect them, to make sure that they are not likely to be exposed. But the idea that the rest of us are staying home from work or school or our other activities, that the healthy people are all wearing masks, these things, I maintain, are unnecessary, they aren't helpful, and they actually do more damage. They do far more damage, frankly, than the virus itself has done to the population. So, people need to take reasonable precautions if they're in those risk categories. Children, for example, don't fall into that category at all. We know that the risk to children, Roy, is essentially, it is approaching 0.0. In the state of California, for example, if you go to the Department of Public Health, the California site, they will acknowledge that the total number of deaths related to COVID or attributable to COVID in the state of California, people under the age of 18, wait for it, is 0. 0. According to their own website, 0 people under the age of 18 in the state of California have died attributable to COVID. Now, there are 9 million people, thereabout, give or take, in the state of California under the age of 18, and of 9 million people, not one has died. Now, how you can translate that into a mandated shutdown of schools or parks or summer camps or whatever else is simply unfathomable to me. So while I am the first to say the virus is real and we mourn the death of everyone in the country and we don't want anyone to become ill, but you cannot make mandates that impact tens, if not hundreds of millions of people on the basis of this data. It simply doesn't make sense.
And Stephen said, does Dr. Kelly Victory think the virus is a joke? No, if you listen to her first statement, she said the virus is very real. So let's clear that up so no misconceptions are getting out there. But and we don't rehearse this stuff, but you segued into what I was thinking of the next, or what I wanted to bring out on that. We talked about it a little bit at the top of the show. Orange County Board of Education, which a lot of people don't know, that your counties actually have a Board of Education, and your individual school districts, where your school is, have a sub-chapter of them, and that's what most people are familiar with. But last night, they voted 4-1 said schools should reopen. They had done a white paper with lots of experts that said kids not only should not wear masks, there's a lot of evidence to say there's an overwhelming danger when they do wear masks for that. They said in the white paper, it said teachers are more apt to get coronaviruses from another teacher or somewhere else than from kids in the classroom. We see no credible evidence of why schools in Orange County cannot open in the fall semester as they did before March when all this madness started. What do you say, Kelly?
I agree 100%. Children, as I said, we know are an extraordinarily, essentially approaching zero risk unless that child has underlying significant health conditions. And, you know, if you've got a child who's got diabetes or obesity or is on chemotherapy for leukemia or God knows what else, those kids would fall into a risk category. But children, otherwise healthy kids, don't. Furthermore, we know, and I haven't seen that particular white paper, but we know that children are an unlikely what we call vector for the virus. They are unlikely to spread the virus for a number of reasons. They seem to, number one, be able to clear the virus themselves very, very quickly. Many kids without even developing antibodies. Their immune systems can actually fight off the virus before they even need to mount an antibody response. When they do get the virus in their noses and mouths, they tend to carry significantly less what we call viral load, the amount of virus, about a quarter, 25% of what adults have. So they aren't likely to be the ones to spread it. Asymptomatic kids don't spread the virus. So this Orange County paper that you're just reporting from is correct that a teacher is more likely to get it from another adult or from someone in the grocery store than from a child that they're teaching in school. And what I've suggested all along is if a teacher, an individual teacher, falls into the risk category. If you're a teacher who's 70 years old, obese with diabetes, that individual may choose, and it's their prerogative, to either stay home or to wear a mask themselves or to take further precautions, whatever those may be. But to penalize and apply across the board that all 1 million kids, for example, there are 1 million kids that are served in the school system in San Diego and Los Angeles counties, that all 1 million kids should stay home because there are a certain handful of teachers who are in risk categories doesn't make sense. And again, to those listeners who question any of this, unfortunately, the role of public health is a little bit different than the role of one-on-one individual primary care physicians. The role of those people advising in public health have to take into account and balance how are they helping one individual versus the impact of those mandates, of those regulations on the population, on the public in general, the public health, everybody. And that health includes not only physical health, but we have to take into account, economic health, psychological health, social health, those sorts of things into account. And so when you're putting mandates in place that impact millions of people, we simply aren't in a position to say, as public health people, well, if it just saves one life. It sounds callous, but it shouldn't if you understand that that's not, we can't manage that way if it saves one life. If we did that, if our goal was to make sure that not one child died, we would outlaw motor vehicles. We would outlaw residential swimming pools. We would not allow children to ride bicycles. We would outlaw all kinds of things and say, let's let everybody live in a bubble because our goal is to prevent one death. That can't be the public health mandate. We have to balance. It's got to be a balance. And closing schools, I believe, so clearly harms far, far, far more people than it protects.
There could be no clearer distinction between this balance than two very populous states on each coast and their governor's approach to this. Gavin Newsom's locking down, praising the the no going to school in LAUSD in San Diego, and we're all running around here in California, sans Orange County, and a few like chickens with their head cut off, thinking the world's coming to an end. Ron DeSantis, governor of Florida, as Gavin Newsom said Monday. Ron DeSantis over the weekend, governor of Florida, which their positivity rate is higher, almost twice that. He's saying there's, we understand that, looking at realistically, it's in a younger population. We're not that concerned about it. And he said, if we can figure out how to keep Walmart open, then our schools should be open. And I mean, you can't get any, there's one governor trying to keep everything as normal as possible in Florida versus a California governor who's just on this mad power trip or I don't know what.
Yeah, and I think, again, this is one of the huge contributors to the frustration of the residents of California and other states that are being run by these dictatorial governors, because it's the inconsistency that is making people crazy. That you can have liquor stores and marijuana stores and Walmart open, but churches and schools and other things can't be open. There's an inconsistency that is obvious even to the most casual observer, and I think that is really problematic. When you look at the numbers, unfortunately, the public is being smacked over the head every day with these numbers. The cases. There's an uptick in cases. There's a spike in cases, and I've tried to say from the beginning, and I'll reiterate, the cases themselves are irrelevant if it doesn't translate into people becoming ill, needing hospitalization, or, God forbid, dying. And we are actually seeing the deaths from COVID-19 continue to fall in the face of increased, quote, cases. So the actual mortality rate, as I predicted back in February, March, and April, is falling, as I predicted, to far closer to what we would say is on par with a bad influenza season. Even the CDC is now reporting that the mortality rate is somewhere around 0.6%. You will recall it was only months ago, that they were saying it was 6, 7, 8, 10%. Now they're acknowledging it's at 0.6%. Now, I'm not gloating about them being wrong in their early predictions. I'm saying this is a good thing, people. We should be celebrating this. Good. This is wonderful. We can stop being so fearful, not because the virus is a joke, not because it's a hoax, not because there's some conspiracy theory about it being made up, but because it turns out that it is a bad virus in a very small percentage of the population, and we are perfectly capable as a society to rally around that portion of the population that's truly at risk and let everybody else get back up and going before it's too late.
We got one more question from our listener, but you kind of touched on it, but maybe you can expand on it a little bit. They ask, how does the virus affect a healthy person?
Well, it's a great question. Most people, somewhere in the range of 85% of people who contract this virus have essentially no discernible symptoms. People don't even know that they have it. A lot of the folks testing positive right now, who are counted in the positive case numbers, have no symptoms at all. And this is sort of one of the problems is I can't think of another time in history when we have randomly and massively tested people with no symptoms. Generally, how many people in your audience went and got tested for influenza when they didn't have any symptoms? I mean, how many people go in and say, I'd like a test for whatever.
Yeah.
I feel fine, but I'd like a test for strep throat. Well, do you have a sore throat? No. Do you have a fever? No. Well, then why am I testing you for strep throat? Why would I do that? I mean, that's so. And we frankly don't have the data. If I shoved a swab down the throats of random people with no symptoms, I might pick up strep. I don't know because we don't know, because we don't do that. I mean, I truly am not making light of it. I'm shrugging my shoulders, saying I've been a physician for decades. We've never done this before. We have never tested random people with no symptoms. But now with COVID-19, we are. So how does it affect a healthy person? Most people don't have any symptoms. Other people get the symptoms relatively mild, a cough, fever, body aches, kind of the way you would with influenza. And then there's a very, much smaller percentage of folks who really do get into some significant trouble where they start to have that inflammatory response in their lungs that can be problematic. And those are folks who need to get medical care. And the great news is that over all of these months, we know now, Roy, we've got several treatments that actually work. As you know, I believe that hydroxychloroquine is one of them. Inhaled steroids are another one that many people are using effectively. High doses of zinc. People are using, there are other drugs that are being tested, including things like remdesivir. Very expensive drug, but it's being tested, and some people are having great response from that. So the great news is we've gotten better at treating people who become ill with it, and we know that ventilators aren't the be-all, end-all that we thought they were early on. So, I'm somewhat mystified at why we are treating this the way we are, not because it's not real, but we have new viruses come down the pike all the time. We had an outbreak in 2009 of H1N1. We had the SARS in 2003, and we just have never quite responded like this. That's the understatement of the century. We haven't responded like this in previous outbreaks of things. And so I would implore people to try not to focus so much on the, oh my gosh, there are X number of new cases, because the vast, vast majority of those people aren't ill.
Yes, it's astounding of that. And I know for one, and probably a lot in our audience, I want to thank you because you're one of a few voices out there that's kept my sanity through this stuff because, and at least given me some ammunition to counteract some of this stuff. So I want to give you my sincerest appreciation for sticking to the facts, not fear on this, as kind of your little hashtag has become. Dr. Kelly Victory, thanks for being on the show. We'll do it again next week.
That would be great. Thanks, Roy.
Dr. Kelly Victory, who, again, like I said, it's, I just enjoy our conversation, and I enjoy bringing it to you each time we do because, she brings a reasonable sanity to this insane situation we're living in. And I want to point out, because she mentioned hydroxychloroquine, and I hope I got the name right on that, but remember when this first came out, Dr. Fauci, Dr. Birx, the media was jumping all over Trump, who was saying, hey, let's get this see, I'm messing it up again. Hydro-C, let's put it that way, maybe I can say that, out there, let's see if it works. Dr. Barkey, which was we've had on the show earlier, and he was on the Orange County segment, said the same, he said he was he was for it. There was another doctor, and they were, the pharmacist was actually giving him some guff because he was prescribing it. And he said, he called him back, or when they called back, he said, it's none of your business. It's a perfectly legal drug for me to prescribe. Fill the subscription. And according to the video that he put out, he said, the pharmacist apologized, but with the new guidelines and government regulations, we got to ask the question. And he says, why are you trying to get between me and my patient? I'm perfectly legal of prescribing it within my jurisdiction, doctor purview, whatever, to do this. It's none of your business why that's between me and the patient, not you. This is a problem like changing the Redskins name. Like Dan Snyder said, I'll never do it. Well, government put the pressure on him to do it. You want to live in a world where every move you make is dictated. That's where if we let this runaway freight train go keep rolling down the tracks and not try and stop it, that's where we're going. They're going to dictate everything's going to be an it. You can't say anything. There's no distinction. Everything's going to be not even black and white. I guess it's just going to be black. I mean, or whatever, or white. Or pick a color. I don't know. But we're not going to have any choices. Everything is fine. Kind of like old Henry Ford with the Model T. You can have any color you want as long as it's black. And that's how General Motors basically kicked his rear end or got to be a much bigger car company, because they offered green ones and yellow ones and blue ones and customized and yada, yada, yada. And they became a lot bigger than Ford when Ford was one of the beginning first and major auto manufacturer. So, again, people want choices. Everybody likes something different. You like green, I like blue, or whatever. We shouldn't be one monolithic thing. That's what we need to worry about going on. We'll be back tomorrow on Wicked Wednesday with Stephanie on that to bring you all the latest news and views and everything that's going on. So until then, see ya.